All right, so considering the things that I'm about to say, I think it's only fair that I lead with this. Mutahar, I don't hate you. I don't want you canceled. Honestly, I would just like to see a change in the way that you do certain things. Really, that's the secondary goal here. The primary goal is just to get some cathartic relief because I've seen way too many things you've done lately that just irk me, right? Don't get me wrong, the engineer thing is a problem, and honestly, I would even argue that it's a bigger problem than a lot of people have been suggesting, but it's not the end of the world, and I'll get into that in a bit. Really, if this were just about that, I wouldn't have even bothered because a ton of people are already covering that enough. And some random guy who's just about to upload his first YouTube video that looks like shit because he doesn't know what he's doing, and ChatGPT can only teach you so much. This first time video isn't really going to have much of an effect on that, but the reality is there's a long list of things that I've seen over time that I feel reflect really poorly on a guy who claims to love his subscribers like his family. Okay, a guy who adamantly defends free speech, a guy who talks about being a loyal friend, a guy who, on the one hand, made fun of Boogie and then insisted lying about things like cancer is worthy of burning in hell. You actually seem to do this stuff on a regular basis, year after year. And these are things that not only should you not do to family, people you love, close friends, you really just good practice, you shouldn't do it at all. So I just felt like it was about time that somebody made a video like this where all of that is addressed. So that's what I'm going to try to do. If nothing else, at the very least, it'll make me feel better. So I've really known for years that you've been kind of an inconsistent guy. I've seen enough of your videos. I've seen countless clips of you espousing your beliefs and opinions with a tenacity that boasts an unwavering commitment, only to almost immediately find out later, usually within the week, that it's actually bullshit. And the weird thing about it is it doesn't even have to be. Like, for example, you talk about how seriously you take your investigations and research, but then you proceed to get shit wrong that all you would have had to do is just do like a quick Google search and then click on the first thing that pops up on Google. In fact, as I'm watching these videos from guys like Nick Andros, WestJet, and Harmful Opinions, all I've really been able to think to myself is, holy shit, dude. If these guys are seriously just going to go through and find every single time you've either said something that you've had to walk back, that you've apologized for, or that you've somehow contradicted yourself, they're basically going to have enough content for the next 6 months if they're on a daily minimum upload schedule. I can't actually cover every time you've been inconsistent or hypocritical because that would take an entire series. And to be honest, this wasn't even going to be my first video. I was actually planning on doing something a lot more serious than this. And once I get this out of the way, I'm actually going to go back to finishing that. I do want to cover a few particular moments that stand out to me because I think they're great examples of the shit that just, it bugs me the most about you. Things like, and let's just get this out of the way now, lying about all of your careers, all right? I'm not going to be one of these people that says, well, unless he wants to provide evidence that he's no, 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 no. Mm-mm. I am saying it outright. You're not an engineer. You never have been, and you didn't even finish school, so it's literally not even possible, okay? This isn't a debate, all right? And also, I know you didn't finish school because I have actually finished degrees before, and I've seen other YouTubers who have been in college while they were doing YouTube. And I guarantee you that if you had, we would have at least heard occasional references to it like we do from virtually everyone who's ever been on YouTube while going to college, because at the bare minimum, it would have been affecting your life in some kind of a way that you would have had inevitably bring it up, because it would have somehow probably affected your upload schedule, even if it was just to reference something like that, or working around a class or a project, something, we would have heard about it. Just like, you know, essentially we have with anyone else who's ever been in a similar position. Okay. So I haven't heard you once talking about classes, midterms, finals, projects, nothing. Okay. It's not like you just discreetly went off to college, didn't say anything to anybody, and after you dropped out, went back in, got a degree, went and got an engineering job, didn't tell anybody about it, but until you just said, I'm an engineer. None of that. The only clip we have of you talking about college in any capacity are the ones where you admit that you dropped out one semester in. Now, just so this point can finally stop being debated, because this is not a debatable point at all. He has literally said this himself. Mutahar has said this himself. Okay? He admitted to dropping out. So this is not debatable. There is no degree. He's not going to show you his engineering degree because it doesn't exist. It's not there. So I don't know why people are talking about it. Hopefully they stop, because this isn't even a point of contention, and it never was. For context, he means he didn't even finish 6 months of school. All right. And it might even mean he didn't even finish 3 months. But I'm not going to fight him over 3 months. I'll be generous and just go ahead and say that you didn't quite finish 6 months of school. That's actually the best I could. That's the most charitable I can be. So this bullshit about you being an engineer of any kind, or you being a cybersecurity expert, it's got to stop. Okay? It's disrespectful to people who've actually put in the time and who've put in the work, who've made the sacrifices to actually get it done and get the credentials that actually allow those people to call themselves that. All right. It's bad enough when you call yourself an engineer or a cybersecurity expert or whatever, despite absolutely like not having any of these credentials, right? Or even done anything close to them. But when you try to use this stuff, these lies that you give yourself the appeal to authority with, then shit talk people like Elon Musk for not knowing anything about software engineering or anything else. It's honestly fucking delusional, really. And look, to be clear, I'm not here to polish Elon's knob or anything like that. If you want to smack talk Elon or anybody else, go right ahead. The part that I actually have a problem with is when you try to position yourself as somebody who is smarter than somebody like him and understands this stuff better, when the extent of your experience is you, I don't know, like installed Linux on a fucking Steam Deck and you've modded a PC, maybe built one. You know what Elon built? Rocket ships, bro. He built the network that dominates satellite internet connection. Okay. That's the kind of stuff he built. And so I'm guessing that Elon probably knows a little bit more than you about some of this stuff. And even if you do have substantial knowledge on this, he still knows more than you. And anyone who is going to try and tell me that Elon didn't build anything, understand that I don't mean he was literally like in there drawing up schematics and fucking, putting on a hard hat with a wrench and all that, whatever else. I mean, he had a significant background in the whole process. It wasn't just his money that he threw into it. He knows what he's doing. He understands this stuff, is my point. Okay. So he, at a minimum, has a notable knowledge base, and I guarantee you, I would probably bet my left nut that he's got more knowledge than Mutahar does. So when he puts people down and calls them idiots and says he knows way more than them, and as an engineer, I know that what he's saying is fucking stupid. Again, call him stupid all you want, but don't call him stupid on the premise of your background, education, and experience, because it doesn't fucking exist, right? And here's the thing. I don't even understand why you would even bother lying about something like this in the first place, man. That's honestly one of the whole cores of the issue that I have is half the lies you tell. I don't even get why you would bother to do it. All right, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. So maybe you don't have as much traditional job experience, right? Because you were 18, you became a YouTuber, and at an early age, it became extremely successful, right? It took off, so you ran with it. It was this, it was successful. You kept at it, and now you use it to pay the bills. That's great. There's no need to be ashamed of something like that. And for the life of me, I don't understand why YouTubers who make money are ashamed of that. It's not a thing to be ashamed of. You talk or you do content, whatever your niche is, and you've developed a following. You put in the time, the work, the effort, you built a following, it pays the bills. You don't need to be ashamed of it, dude. It's actually, unironically, man, it's worse that you would lie about having jobs that you didn't actually have, as opposed to just admitting that you're a successful YouTuber, man. You started making money young, you kept at it, so you didn't need to actually go and do anything else. There isn't any shame in that, man. And as a way of kind of trying to be empathetic here, I think I get it. Because I've listened to you talk about how your family says, oh, you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. I get it, man. I've worked with families from all over the world. It was part of one of my main jobs that I've had over my lifetime in my career. That was like one of my main things I did. I got to meet a lot of different people from a lot of different countries. It was just part of the deal. So I learned a thing or two about cultures all over the world. So I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying that I am a cultural authority or expert. I'm saying that I have met a lot of people from a lot of different cultures. And so I understand some of the basics. And so I just want to point that out because I happen to know a thing or two about that. And I also know a thing or two about psychology and behavior analysis because that is also a huge part of my background. The reason I'm saying this is because when I watch you talk about careers and what the expectations are in your family, when I hear you say, oh, it's got to be doctor, lawyer, engineer, and then I hear in other clips of you where you talk about how you're not really close with your family, YouTube is your family, your subscribers are your family, that tells me a little bit. This is purely a guess. I have very limited information, so I'm going out on a limb, but honestly, I think that's a big part of the reason that you're choosing to lie. If I'm being real, I think that's why you're consistently being dishonest about this. It's because of the fact that you feel there's some kind of guilt or shame or pressure about not having more traditional job experience. I think that stems from some very heavy expectations, maybe, that some of your family placed on you. So if that's the case, on the one hand, I do have a bit of empathy for you. Okay. And this is just me trying to understand better and trying to be empathetic. The problem is that if you told me that was the case, now that I've said this, if you came out and said, man, you hit the nail on the head, it's true, and I honestly wouldn't even know at this point if I could believe you or if this was just another one of your manipulation tactics that you're using in order to get sympathy to deflect from an ongoing situation that you feel pressure, anxiety, existential dread from whatever, like that time that you told everybody that you might have cancer or heart failure. It was right around that same time that you tore Boogie apart for him doing something similar. Now, I understand that his situation was a lot worse than yours. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you straight out lied about cancer. I just find the similarities weird. Weird is how I'll put it. So, look, let's say for argument's sake, this stuff had something to do with it. Okay, let's say that it came from something internal, from childhood, from pressure. Mutahar isn't lying to fuel his ego, to monetize false credentials by exploiting an ancient Canadian law that never would have possibly anticipated the day that an internet website would come and allow people to turn on a camera and a mic in their bedroom after they just proceeded to blow ass and rolled out of bed after playing Cyberpunk all night and into a chair calling themselves an engineer and make 6 to 7 figures off of that, okay? Let's humanize him a bit. And let's say he did it, he felt embarrassed or shame, okay? Dude, just explain to the people that are affecting you that we live in a world where you get to talk at your desk and make more money than likely a lot of the people who are actually criticizing you for that whole not having a real job thing or whatever variation of it you're hearing, right? What you don't do, though, definitely what you don't do, don't recommend this. This is one of those never do it things, all right? Is you don't wake up every day, look a bunch of people in the eye, and then tell them how you love them like family, and then proceed to spew bullshit, exploit those lies for money, and then silence anyone who points it out, while simultaneously saying that you are a champion of free speech. And oh, before I get into free speech and betraying friends and family, I want to address one more thing, because people have asked. There have been a couple of YouTubers that have covered you. They're like, hey, I don't really know anything about this, but maybe there's someone in the comments who can help out. Maybe they know about this. I'm your guy. This is the value that I can add to the discourse. Hasn't been talked about as much, okay? See, I don't know about cybersecurity, so I can't say much. That said, there is something that you said I absolutely can comment on how ridiculous it sounded. Because, you see, there's a difference between when a bullshitter talks about something you don't know about versus something that you do. When you don't know about a topic, you might hear something and think there are some red flags. Maybe something sounds wrong. Maybe something just doesn't feel right. But when it's something you know, it's totally different, okay? So when I heard you say everything that you said about day trading, I'm gonna go ahead and call bullshit, bud. Because here's the deal. I have been trading since the early 2010s. Like, if I had to ballpark it, somewhere between like 2011, 2013, something like that. I can't remember. And on a related note, since he did say this, I would just want to point out, he said day trading, swing trading, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I have a question for you. Which is it, Mr. 85% success rate? Because there is a difference. You can't say day trading, swing trading, whatever you want to call it, like they're the same thing, because they're not. Day trading is exactly what it sounds like. It is literally a position that you open and close, and you do so with the same security on the same trading day. Okay? And that's important. Swing trading is not that. Swing trading is a reference to opening a position on one day and then closing that position on a different trading day, right? So it could be the next day, it could be a week, whatever, right? But it's really, swing trading is not really the same thing. There's two different terms for a reason. Okay, some people choose to kind of interchange them, but that's not a thing that's meant to differentiate. So It could technically be like, okay, for example, if I trade MES that day, if I have the margin for it, I can open that position in the morning at like 8 a.m., right? If I then take that same position that I opened at 8 in the morning and I close that position, let's say at 2 a.m., it's technically the next day, but it's considered a different trading day, right? Because it hasn't been 24 full hours, so it hasn't been a full day, but it's a different trading day. You could get into the weeds about the differences between that, but if you're somebody who has been trading for almost a year, as he put it in that clip, and you're doing well enough and using all those maths that you were talking about, you would definitely know the difference. And of course you would, Mutahar, because, you have an 85% success rate over an entire year. And by the way, guys, this is important. Not just not just any year, sorry, his first year. The same year that, what are the stats? It's not, I can't remember if it's 95% of all day traders or 99% of all day traders fail within the first year. So for him to be getting 85% his first year, wow, bro, that is incredible. That's phenomenal. Okay. You are literally a more successful trader than Warren Buffett. In fact, you make him look like he almost didn't even know what he was doing, okay? That's how good you are, buddy. And that's how I know you're full of shit. Because here's the thing, dude. That whole sipping your coffee and, you know, I just wake up in the morning and I sip my coffee and I look at the NASDAQs and then I just make my trades and I'm done by 10 in the morning. Okay, dude, first off, I have seen how much you panic over things that are nothing burgers on a scale of 1 to 10, bro. You're going to sit there and you're going to tell me with a straight fucking face that you went around engineering your little engineer skills at 9 to 5 at your 9 to 5 job, then just casually traded during the day and then nonchalantly came home and did a YouTube video. Bro, the only people who would believe this are, and both have to be true, this isn't a one or the other situation. You would have to A, have never done any swing or day trading, and B, you'd have to be concerningly naive. All right, let me be clear. Couple things here. Can you day trade with a 9 to 5 job? Yes, absolutely. It's tricky, but you can. I've literally had days myself where I was sitting in an office making anywhere from, $200 to $400 on a lunch break, just a quick little scalp, just in and out, boom, and then back to work. You can, depending on the kind of job you have, it can work. But what I do not believe, he describes that process. Again, just sitting there, he's just, I'm just drinking my coffee and looking at the NASDAQs, okay, and I'm done at 10 or 11. Okay, that sounds, when you listen to him say that, that actually sounds exactly like a knockoff Temu Instagram trading guru. It's like I half expected him to segue to where he's showing off his Lamborghini and his jet, and then I thought he was going to offer us fucking courses, dude, because it was just so cliche. It was cringe level of just, bro, you are obviously full of shit. I'm sorry. Like, anyone who's spent enough time in the trading space knows how sketchy that sounds, okay? Because first off, if you're a day trader or swing trader, you know that most of the time you're actually not going to go and look at your NASDAQs while you're drinking your coffee and then you're just going to pick some trades and you're going to math it up and you're just going to come up with a perfect thing. That's not how that works, okay? A lot of people actually are literally watching trades for days, sometimes weeks at a time. And a lot of times you have trades mapped out the night before or the day before. And then depending on what a stock does that day, the following day, you decide whether or not you're going to move. And if not, you adjust and you keep watching it as long as it stays within a range that's of interest to you. Otherwise, you leave it the fuck alone. But the only thing worse than his cringy little rant is that 85% number. There are people saying, that sounds sketchy to me, but I don't know. Anyone want to let me know? I'm letting you know. 85%. Bro, fuck being the LeBron James and the Michael Jordan of trading. At that point, if you have an 85% success rate and it's only your first year, bro, you're officially the Wall Street god, okay? The CEO of BlackRock would personally verify those numbers. He would fly down to where you are on a private jet to knock on your door, drop down to his knees, and blow you personally just to take an application from you if those were your fucking numbers, okay? The only way that numbers like that are going to make sense almost always is if maybe you placed a handful of trades, so 5 trades all year long, and you're saying you have about 85% success because you did those 5 and got 4 right and were kind of close on the 5th, but technically it wasn't right, so you're giving yourself half a point or something. I'm sorry, Mutahar, but just as important as any technical approach is the psychology piece of this. And I have seen how anxious you get over small ass things. And I have seen how stressed out you look virtually all the time. You literally constantly, every time you turn on a camera and you're not wearing a hat, you just got this disheveled fucking hair and this beard that's like you haven't shaved anyway. Like it's dude, you have bags under your eye. Dude, you look like a cop that has been on the force for 20 years and has really seen some shit, living on a diet of like coffee, cigarettes, and pain pills. You're Max Payne. You look like Max Payne. That's what you look like. And I refuse to believe that you placed trades in between getting ready for some random YouTube video, and then while sitting at your desk, you placed this trade and didn't watch it incessantly and end up bailing on positions or making impulsive decisions. Okay? You've demonstrated on countless occasions through all of the mistakes that you've cataloged online that you do not have the psychology to follow through on any trading strategy, even if you did come up with one, and I do not believe that you did. Okay, so unlike the rest of this shit though, if you want to prove me wrong, I would be happy to look at any evidence, but I'm gonna be skeptical. I'm willing to admit I'm wrong. For the record, I will happily apologize. I will take it all back if it turns out that I'm wrong. Don't think I am. So now I want to get into the main reason that I decided to do this whole thing instead of something else, okay? So the Nux Taku situation, I'm really not going to rehash that. There's plenty of great videos out there that cover the lore and do that justice. I really can't. But the TLDR is Nux and Mutahar were close. Controversy popped off. Lolly stuff, not great. But Mutahar was under a little bit of pressure, and he responded to that pressure like any level-headed good friend would. He immediately threw his friend under the bus and completely cut ties with him. So, is anyone noticing a pattern yet? You know, that Mutahar likes to sort of endear himself with people, insisting that he shares a close connection with you. Then, as soon as you no longer serve a purpose or you're too much of a burden, he immediately kind of fucks you over or disregards you, kind of like his beliefs a little bit. He'll shout atop the roofs regarding censorship and the importance of free speech right up until it affects him. then yeah, you're immediately getting fucking censored. Or how about when he was shouting his assertions, anyone believes in a god and a devil and lies about cancer should go burn in hell? He then found himself in a little bit of trouble, a little bit of controversy, some pressure, and now suddenly he sends out all these heartfelt messages about how he loves his subscribers and how he's concerned about his health. And he might have heart failure and also maybe even cancer, you know, and that's totally okay, you know, because he didn't lie about having cancer. See, you know, he didn't lie about having heart failure at a time when sympathy would have benefited him. See, he implied that it was a significant possibility. All right. And by the way, if you say something that pisses him off too bad, he might also try and sue you for defamation too. There's that. But he's absolutely a free speech guy. And the thing is I am actually a free speech guy. So this kind of shit bugs me. Like the kind of people who like to grift off the free speech narrative because they know it scores them people points, but then when they're feeling the heat, they don't really want to live by that rule. No. See, that I take an issue with that, okay? This is my major problem, is the level of hypocrisy that exists in Mutahar's life and his content, okay? You say you're pro free speech, and then you censor people and threaten lawsuits. You say that you're never going to do drama again, and then you do drama. You do a bunch of videos on some drama stuff. I think within, what was it, like 3 days of you saying that you were never going to do drama ever again, you know, you said you're never going to do politics because you're not an expert and it wouldn't be appropriate, you know, it wouldn't be responsible for you to do that. And then you go on a podcast with some other dude and start yelling out that super hot, totally nuanced take that's deep and indicative of somebody well versed in the arena of politics, that there are kids dying in Gaza right now. There are kids and mothers dying. And look, let me be clear. Don't get me wrong. That's true. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. Okay. I don't care who you are, where you are. Dead kids is the worst news anybody could get. That's terrible. Dead families, it's awful. I'm not making light of that. It's just that you two really were not going anywhere with that discussion. From what I remember, that discussion didn't accomplish anything at all. I'm not even sure if you guys even finished the debate. I think one of you hung up on the other or something. I can't remember, but I know it didn't go anywhere. You know, but you said you weren't going to do politics. So naturally you had to squeeze in a podcast sometime that same week where that's exactly what you did. And that is quite possibly your entire life. It's like everything, man. Everything that you say and do seems like a lie. It seems like a falsehood, a hypocrisy, and I don't get why you can't just be that guy that talks on YouTube about video games and tech stuff and whatever else without fucking it up for yourself, man. Just do that. Like, stop kicking yourself in the dick with your own mouth on camera and just get your shit together, man. And look, no one's perfect, all right? I know I am definitely not. I'm not sitting here claiming to be. I'm not sitting here claiming I'm like the alpha upper echelon of people. Like, dude, I have a laundry list of problems myself. The difference is I don't try to lie about them all the time. I don't, you know, I'm not saying I've never said anything hypocritical. I feel like as people, we all have, but I try to be consistent. I think I've got a pretty good track record of it. If I end up doing YouTube consistently, I guess we'll know for sure because time will tell, you know. But this shit bugs me because you're a large figure on YouTube. You make lots of money reaching millions of people. So it really bothers me that you're the type of person to put out 2 apology videos. One of them was around 30 minutes. The other one was maybe around 15. I don't even think it was that long. Okay. The longer one was you apologizing for buying a Switch 2 after months of farming content on the anti-Nintendo, Nintendo is greedy gravy train, only to immediately do the opposite of what you said for months. And immediately after buying the Switch the day of release, you put out an apology video that I'm fairly certain was monetized. And, nothing says, oh, I'm sorry for farming content based on my hypocrisy. And also, by the way, I'm sorry for, lying to my family for months, like repeating yourself for half an hour while you collect ad revenue off the backs of those same people. I'm sorry. Forgive me for thinking that just comes off as a little disingenuous, dude. But honestly, it is great as a content strategy. If the only thing that really matters to you is the grift, it's a great way to go. But here's the other piece, the important piece. And again, one of the main reasons that I wanted to make this. That other apology video, the second one I mentioned, that one that was, not even 15 minutes long. That was the one that Mutahar made for throwing his friend under the bus and then saying they like patched things up. So that right there, that, ladies and gentlemen, sums up my problem with Mutahar in the best way. He's the kind of guy that'll tell you that you're his family. Then he'll lie about virtually everything, including important aspects of his own life to exploit it for money. Then, when he gets caught lying, being hypocritical, or doing something shady, he'll apologize to you, making sure to monetize it as part of his grift. And look, again, you can do that. Like, I'm sitting here making a video right now. It's just that when you're doing an apology, that just seems like a weird time to farm ad revenue from your subs when the whole reason you're doing this video is to apologize for farming your subs. I don't know, man. It's just, it seems like, again, values and actions not really lining up. When I see that, it looks like in the mind of Mutahar, it works like this. How he prioritizes things is, okay, betrayed one of my best friends in multiple ways. Maybe I'll do about 10 minutes, something like that. That ought to be enough. That's probably good. No big deal. Whereas I bought a console that I said I wouldn't. Holy Christ, I got to give them at least half an hour. I got to be like on the verge of tears, and I got to just, maybe even go longer than that. I don't know. I just got to sit here and repeat myself for a half hour because I can barely organize my thoughts because I'm just so ashamed of my behavior. And, I'm just in a state of grief over my actions, my hypocrisy, my shameless, being a hypocrite. I've got to take the L. And, I just don't like that this guy pretends to be a wholesome, moral guy as he proceeds to engage in behavior that is almost sociopathic in nature, okay? He'll constantly pretend like he's some kind of champion of free speech, dropping hot takes in one video, and all the while you can just go to his content deputy, where he basically admits himself that he's too much of a pussy to stick his neck out on a controversial subject until after about 6 or so other people already take the risk. Okay, so he's like that guy that seems like he'd jump into a bar fight after the fight's done to make it look like he was there the whole time. And then he's the first guy to start telling the story. And of course, he is going to insert himself into all the best parts. He was doing all the work, right? Okay, so here's the summary. Mutahar has lied about things that really he's lucky that the law where he lives hasn't updated to reflect his circumstances, or he'd be screwed. I guarantee you that if somebody explained this to Canadian Parliament or whatever it is, the lawmakers over there, that chances are pretty decent they might actually do something about that, because I have a feeling the whole point of the law was so that you can't work, exploit the credential for money. And at the time, the only idea they had that you could make money off of it was purely by just working as an engineer. But in this day and age, there are more ways to exploit it, so they might actually change it. But either way, the fact that you would even exploit people that you allegedly love like family is disturbing either way. Your constant willingness to take stances as if you were the one taking a risk when it's actually the other people who did it, and then you just followed suit and then chased content. But you're beating your chest like King Kong, like you're out there on the front lines, in the trenches, taking the hard stances. Like, bro, you are legitimately one of the most milquetoast YouTubers I've ever seen. And look, by the way, that's okay. That's fine. Again, all of this stuff would just be fine if you would just, like, not try to be something that you're not, dude. That's what this all comes down to. Like, this whole chasing content, taking so-called risks, it's just spineless, douchey behavior. And you could even argue that it's shady because it's basically just another deceptive way to monetize a lie and take advantage of the risks that other people are taking. You constantly say things that you believe, but your actions do not line up with any of it, man. There's so much evidence out there that you're the type of guy to completely fuck over people, the minute that you feel like you need to for whatever reason. Nick Diorio, you're flaky with other YouTube creators. You can go and watch Nick's content, and regardless of what you think of him, he brought receipts. So that's hard to argue. You could be neutral, love his content, hate his content, but one thing you can't argue is he shows the evidence. So here is what I would like to see. I would like to see one of two things. Definitely would prefer one over the other, but I want you to have your stated values align with your behavior, okay? That might mean that you have to change some things that you say or change some things that you do, or both. Obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect. I do not expect perfection from anybody, okay? Again, not perfect, wouldn't expect it from you. I just want to see significant improvements that demonstrate and reflect that you're actually putting some kind of effort in and not being a lying, exploitative, backstabbing hypocrite. That's it. That's really all I want to see. And if I can't get that, I want to see everyone who has been calling you out continue to do so until you do. I'm sorry this had to be my first video, but thank you for watching if you did. And while I've got you, I plan on doing the occasional drama and lore piece, but I'll also be touching on current events, geopolitics, and video games, among other things, with the goal of hopefully informing, entertaining, and providing a little bit of internet catharsis. Thanks for watching, guys.